All right, we're back at it again. All right, seeing the place to be. Rick Serritella, telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin here on this March 28th, 2026. We are 27 days away from destination Pittsburgh. Are you ready? Buckle up, hunker down. We've dived into our positional preview series here on the All Access Football Draft Watch Show. Last week, we broke down wide receivers and tight ends. The week before, we did quarterbacks and running backs. Today is my favorite day, which is the big uglies. We're going to break down our offensive line big board with the tackles, guards, centers. Very good depth, I think, at all three positions. We'll talk about who we like, who's rising, who's sliding, maybe who's surprising. Good morning to all the chat room people. I see Adams Exploits up at it early in the morning. Good morning to you, sir. And we appreciate all the chat room feedback, interaction, questions that you may have. Please drop us a line. Make sure you like, share, subscribe for new show alerts. Just a quick reminder, we do have 3 live streaming shows during the 2026 NFL Draft. Will be live for all 7 rounds right here, wherever you're tuned in. So make sure you make note of that. Also, the NFL Draft Bible, we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, plugging in some final pro day numbers. I'm hoping to have that delivered by Easter. Okay, tentatively, we shall see. It'll go out to the publisher, and we'll send the hard copies out by the middle of April. Go check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We may have a pre-draft sale still going. If not, use my promo code RICVIP. Get 30% off. We'll have over 500. We're sitting at 547 scouting reports right now. A few others trickling in. Big shout out to the front office department at NFL Draft Bible. They're doing a wonderful job. Okay, we'll have some pro day news and notes later on in the show. And I also have some injury updates on some players who were flagged medically at the combine. I'll get into that later on. And if we do have time, I was tuned in. I was locked into the UFFL kickoff last night. I have plenty of notes from the players in action last night. We'll try to sneak that in there if we have time. But first, we got to break it down and chop it up NFL draft style here. I can't believe we're 27 days away. And my co-host has plenty of NFL experience, of course, with the St. Louis Rams, Cleveland Browns, NFL scout, previously with UCLA recruiting, also a front office executive at the XFL, original XFL, and then later on with the Canadian Football League with several organizations, of course, a former member of the CBS Today Show, a mentor at Sports Management Worldwide. You see me rocking the gear, spearheading the football GM and scouting course. Make sure you check out smww.com for that. And, of course, my co-host each and every Saturday, checking in from Chicago this week. We're so happy to have him each and every week on the All Access Football Draft Watch Show. He is Russ Lande right now joining us to the program. How you doing, Russ?
I'm doing great. Yeah, back in the normal weather, not out there in 100-degree weather out in Arizona. So I'm happy to be where it's a little bit more sensible.
Yeah, I see they're losing their basketball team. I think I saw the Suns are relocating to Houston. So little basketball notes for you guys. You didn't think I knew that, huh?
I didn't even know it until you said it. So.
All right, well, listen, we teased it last week, the big uglies, trench warfare. I love talking about offensive linemen because to me, outside of quarterback, the best way, in my opinion, is to build a team from the inside out. It starts up front, both on the offensive and defensive line. And you can have a great quarterback, but without a solid offensive line, what do you really have? Just a general thought overview on the offensive line class and your outlook on these prospects, Russ.
Well, firstly, you nail it. If you don't have a good O-line, you're not winning games. I mean, we all talk about if you don't have the quarterback, you're not winning Super Bowls, for sure. But I've not been around a quarterback who's been highly productive in my years of doing this that didn't play behind a solid offensive line. Because if you don't have time to go through your progressions, make smart decisions, it's over. I think this is a really good class. I think it might be the deepest tackle class in a long time. Now, there isn't, to me, the John Ogden, the Orlando Pace at the top, but you talk about good to very good tackles that are going to start for a decade. I think you're talking about really 8 to 10 legitimate first and second round prospects that I think you have to get excited about. And then when you go inside, it's not only depth and quality at the inside, but there's even a few guys that most people are projecting they're going to be interior guys that I think actually have a chance of being tackles too. But I think they're pushed inside, quote unquote, by the media because of the depth at tackle. So I think it's a really, really good class from center to tackle. I think teams that are in that third and fourth round that have so many needs they can't go after a lineman, they're in a great spot. You're going to find guys in the third, fourth, and fifth round this year that are better than some second rounders in years past. It's a great year to go O-line and really pick up and find guys.
Yeah, and like you alluded to on the interior, the guards and centers, there's going to be some real day three values, and we've been doing this quite a while. I mean, this center class to me is just loaded. Usually like half a dozen centers get drafted. I think you could state a case there's maybe a half a dozen potential starters at the center position in this year's class. So it'll be interesting to see how the NFL teams approach that position category. I think they'll take a wait and see approach, but I agree with you at the tackle class, man. I'm really excited. I don't think there's a clear-cut consensus like we've seen in years past, but to your point, man, I think there's going to be a big run on the offensive tackles in round one, and I'll just go through, I'll go through the whole top 10 right here because I think they're all potential starters at the next level. Francis Mauigoa from Miami, Monroe Freeling from Georgia, Caden Proctor from Alabama, who had his pro day this week, Max Ionacher from Arizona State, where Mike Vrabel was getting hands-on with it yesterday, Spencer Fanu and Caleb Lomu from Utah, Big Blake Miller from Clemson, Carver Willis from Washington, Demetrius Crownover from Texas A&M, and the mammoth 6'9", 350-pound Markel Bell out of Miami there, Russ. I will say this. The Utah guys are a little bit lower on my board, especially Fano, who's a little too finesse for me. Of course, there's a question about his arm length. But to me, I think Mauigoa is really the immediate plug-and-play, low-floor tackle that I really feel good about.
I personally like both the Utah kids. I like Mauigoa, however it's pronounced. I think it's a deep class. I think when I look at the two Utah kids, what is so interesting is when you put the film on of one, the other one's going to catch your attention. Because in my opinion, and I've asked a handful of scouts, it's one of the rare times that both kids you're looking at on both sides live up to expectations. I've had a bunch of teams tell me these are both guys that are, quote unquote, what we call D players, which is A, B, C, D, alphabetical. All D players are high first rounders in the scouting system NFL teams use. I've heard teams say, yeah, they love Fano, however it's pronounced. They love his athleticism more than Lomu, but they love Lomu a little bit longer, a little bit thicker. But both these guys, NFL teams agree with me from what I've seen. These are guys that are both going to start in the NFL. Now, Fanu, there might be some teams that say we're going to put him at guard because we're a little nervous about the arm length. If he plays guard, I think he'll be very successful. I agree with you. He's probably more of a positional, athletic finesse guy than he is a violent, kick-your-butt type player. But Lomu, love him. Mauigoa, I like a lot. The Ionacher from Arizona State, a guy I really think is blossomed. I mean, doesn't look like the long linear kid that you think of. He looks a little thicker, but you talk about a kid that I think is going to play a long time. I think a few of the guys that are not, you didn't even mention, that are getting overlooked in this class. To me, Dunker from Iowa.
Yeah. There's a guy. I had him at guard just because I felt like he had better reps at the Senior Bowl. He struggled with some speed on the outside there in Mobile, and then they kicked him inside. He looked a lot better, so that's why I slotted him there for now. But I think
I could see that. To me, he's a lot like Marshall Yonta. And I'm not trying to say he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but there's a lot of similarities in their style, their competitiveness, obviously their technique coming out of the same place. I think Dunker can play guard. I think he can play tackle. Now, is he going to be premier? No, he's going to get threatened by those twitchy little edge dudes, but I think he's fundamentally sound. His positioning is always good. I think he can play tackle. I like the Tiernan kid out of Northwestern. I don't think he gets enough credit. He is a huge human being. 6'8", 330. I mean, this kid can move. He's athletic. The Markel Bell kid, to me, he's the ultimate guy that some O-line coach is going to fall in love with. Because if you take Markel's 20 or 30 best reps of the year, he's a superstar. But the problem is this is a guy who gets yanked out of the lineup because he's so inconsistent. But some coach is going to see him and say, I can do this with him. Guys that I like that aren't really in that top 10, like the Bell to me, I think he's right on that fringe. The Casey kid from Boise, he had a rough all-star game week. But I look at him and I think, hey, if I'm thinking in that third or fourth round, I can get a kid like him. He's got a lot of tools. It's a really deep class. I think when you look at these guys, some of these third, fourth, and day 3 guys, there's going to be some starters coming out.
No doubt. And just for the record, Dunker came in 33 and 4/8 inch arms at the combine. So he does have plenty of length to at least get a shot at the tackle spot. And, Lomu, we talked about it last week with the discrepancy in arm length with Fanu, 32 and 1/8 at the combine, and then 32 and 7/8 at the pro day. Lomu came in 33 and 3/8 at the combine. And one guy, we mentioned him last week, Caden Proctor. He's another guy that maybe gets lumped into the guard category because he's 352 pounds, but he's also got 33 and 3/8 inch arms. And, at his pro day workout, this is an athletic big man. And we saw, I think, a glimpse of that when he took that screen pass and rumbled for a 10-yard touchdown and took about half the defense on his back with him. I like Proctor. I like his demeanor. I like his athleticism. I know he ballooned up to 380 at one point, but back end of the first round, I know we talked about it to the Eagles. You could even start him at guard and then kick him out to replace Lane Johnson eventually. But to me, I like this Caden Proctor.
I do too. I like him. And truthfully, I think a lot of times just starting at guard for a year helps them get confidence, helps them adjust. They're not exposed on the edge. They get used to it. They can get used to the speed of the league, and then you move them outside. I'm not saying it's the always solution, but I think in the case of a guy like Proctor or even a guy like Fanu, people with the arm length concerns, let them get in there at guard, get a year getting comfortable and confident, then try him out at right tackle because the feet are there. We know the athleticism is there. If the hands and arm length aren't an issue, once he's got some confidence, maybe he slides out there and really can handle playing outside. I will say, and I don't want to go too far, too deep, but the Diego Pounds at Mississippi, he's a really intriguing kid, big kid, but he doesn't look fat. He's a big, thick, wide kid, moves pretty well. And the kid that I'm intrigued by, because I thought he played well this year at Kansas, was the Enrique Cruz. This is a kid, didn't get any hype coming into the season. And there was talk at the beginning of the season, was he going to win the starting tackle job? And he isn't a superstar, but he had a good, solid year, really did well at his pro day. There's something there that you look at, hey, this is one of those kids that's climbing. He's getting better. And the P.J. Williams kid from SMU, I've constantly been told about how good he is by people that I know at SMU and that this kid's only going to get better. So very excited to see how some of these later round guys that I think have the tools to play tackle at the next level, see how they develop.
Yeah, a couple other going through the big board, some day 3 potential guys, even day 2 here. Drew Shelton from Penn State, who was the number 1 ranked tackle by National this preseason. Caleb Turner, who you mentioned, 6'8". Any length about being too tall with some of these guys?
I don't get too worried about too tall at tackle. I get more worried about it at guard. At tackle, if you're 6'8", I have to make sure you can move your feet. But the one advantage at 6'8" or 6'9" at tackle is even if you're not a great athlete, that length helps you protect the corner. And sometimes it may take you a little longer to get there, but if you learn how to use that outside arm and outside leg, you can protect the corner even if you're not in great position initially. So I don't get overly concerned with too tall out on the edge. It really concerns me at guard because the question is, can you get down and handle guys putting their helmet in your chest and trying to knock you back to the moon?
Fair enough. Isaiah World, another 6'8", offensive tackle who's got the injury, but once considered a potential first-round pick. Guys
And
like
he's a guy, I got to say, that's the guy I think some O-line coach is going to fall in love with. Because I think you and I would agree, and tell me if I'm wrong, if you just look at guys in a workout setting, moving around, he's as athletic as any tackle in this draft. Now, his film, far from even to me, he didn't even look like a day 2 guy.
Yeah.
His film is a day 3 guy. But I could see some O-line coach sitting down with him, getting a good feel for the kid personally, feeling this kid's so gifted. I mean, when you think about it, he's 320 or 330. He looks like he's 275. He's trim. So you think about some O-line coach is going to really believe they can make him sort of like we talked about with Carson Beck. Somebody's going to fall in love with. I could see somebody falling in love with World and saying we're going to develop. I could see the Eagles being a team that would fall in love with him. Maybe in round 2, they say we're going to roll the dice. He's coming off an ACL, may not be ready to play this year. So you take him, you stick him on PUP for the year. Let your coaches work with him for an entire year before he gets any game exposure. You might get a guy that really shines.
Yeah, agree. Let's see. We got J.C. Davis from Illinois, Nolan Rucci, who was not invited to the combine from Penn State. I mean, the Nittany Lions had a hell of an offensive line between Shelton and Rucci, and then Ione Vega, who we'll get to in the guards in just a minute. Even their center, Nick Dawkins, is probably a undrafted free agent signing. Emil Wagner really impressed me at Notre Dame, and then I went and go put on his film against Ruben Bain, and Bain took him to the woodshed. And it's hard to get that image out of my head, but Bain did that to a lot of offensive tackles.
Yeah.
Jude Bowery had a solid workout at Boston College this week. Fa'amoi Lily from Wake Forest really stood out to me. Just a nasty guy in the trenches, which I really like. Alan Heron from Maryland is a guy who had a good postseason performance. You mentioned Diego Pounds from Ole Miss. I like his counterpart as well, Jaden Daniels, good-looking player. Micah Pettis, who was a combine snub out of Florida State. So a lot of good depth here at the offensive tackle position. Any final thoughts on the tackle group, Russ?
You mentioned the Jaden Williams kid. I agree. I thought he did more with less. Like, he didn't get enough publicity. He's a good football player. I will say the 2 small school kids that are intriguing, the Cooper kid from Slippery Rock, there's something there with this kid, big kid, good football player, and the Cameron Smith kid out of Alabama State, athletic kid, raw. But both of those guys, if I'm sitting day 3 and I've got some good tackles on my roster, this would be a great guy to grab 6th, 7th round, or either one of them, great guy to grab, and try to say, hey, we're going to either develop them on the 53 or put them on the PR. But they're intriguing smaller school guys that I'm looking forward to seeing if they can turn that potential, that intrigue, into actual production at the next level.
All right, he's Russ Lande. I'm Rick Serritella. We're breaking down the offensive line prospects for the 2026 NFL Draft, counting you down to destination Pittsburgh. Those hotel rooms are going up, and we're just 27 days away. Good to see our usual folks in the chat room. Adams Exploit said good morning. Doug Dorner join us as well, says good morning. Adam says the Talking Philly start Proctor at guard, then move him out to tackle. Not a bad philosophy, as Russ just broke down. And then I did not see this, but I'll have to check it out. Interesting podcast with Nick Foles interviewing Coach Jeff Stoutland, 2 former Eagles. I'll be sure to tune in and see what Coach Stoutland has to say. Stoutland University, I mean, it's hard to believe he's not even employed right now in the NFL. So the best offensive line coach out there, you could put him right up with Dante Scarnecchia as far as I'm concerned. All right, Russ, let's shift gears. We'll go into the offensive guards. And to me, Vega Ione from Penn State, I believe, is the best overall offensive line prospect. Not saying he's going to be the first one drafted. I wouldn't be mad if he was, but to me, this dude is a stud. Kalen Rutledge from Georgia Tech. You mentioned Jennings Dunker. How about Bo Stevens from Iowa has really impressed me. Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon. Chase Bisnatis from Texas A&M, who got a little bit of a bump up in the arm length from his pro day measurements this week as well. Trey Zune, who played tackle at Texas A&M, a lot of people project him as guard. Jeremiah Wright from Auburn has some buzz. Big Jalen Farmer from Kentucky. And your guy, Cage Casey from Boise State. Yeah, that Mobile's performance really soured me on him. I'm going to have to reevaluate my slot on him. 6'6", 310, 32 and 6/8 inch arms, and ran a 5.20 40, one of the worst testers amongst the offensive linemen. But thoughts of the top 10 there?
Well, firstly, right off the bat, how crazy is it that a guy who runs a 5.2 is considered a bad tester? Go back 15 years, that would be like one of the top times, right? It's remarkable to me how much it's changed. But you mentioned the kid from Penn State. I think him and Pregnon, I think he might be a shade better, but you're talking two elite guards. To me, both those guys. Now, you never know. Rookies, sometimes you just never know what happens when they get to training camp. But to me, off of college film, both of those guys look like starting guys as rookies. I really like Pregnon. He's unique to me in that he's powerful, but he's also athletic. Not a lot of guards are both. A lot of guards are either a little undersized and athletic or big, thick, and powerful. I like Pregnon. I think the Jaden Roberts kid from Alabama, very talented, but up and down production. There were games he would get his butt kicked. There were games he didn't really even play. That was surprising. I like the DJ Campbell from Texas kid, not the big guy at guard, 6'3". So I think teams, there might be a little concern that he's not as big and thick, but I really like him. I think he's got a lot there in the package. And a guy that to me sits on that verge of, is he a top 10, top 15 guard? But I actually like this kid as a possibility at tackle, as the Harkey kid from Oregon. Yeah. I think when you look at him and you watch him move around in like a pro day setting, he looks more like a guard. He's a little bit stiff. He's not as nimble. But when you watch Oregon film, his positioning, his knowledge of how to play the game, his use of his arms, I really like him in games as a tackle. I'm very intrigued by where Harkey goes. If he goes to me to a team that really does a good job of working on fundamentals and really coaching these guys well, I could see him blossoming and turning into a really, really good offensive lineman at the next level. I also
well, real quick, I left him at tackle, but now I'm saying he's got a weird body type, 6'6" height, 30 big 10-inch hands, but 31 and 6/8 inch arms.
It's a weird deal. It's like, because on film he plays tackle well. Like, he's not an elite tackle, but he's a good tackle. But those numbers scare you. Under 32-inch arms, that's a hard sell. I'll mention one other guy, and this is just sort of my bias. I found out about him 2 years ago, is Logan Taylor out of BC, because it's Canadian. So if he doesn't go early in the NFL draft, which I think he will, I think he's going to go in the first 4 rounds at worst. He's good. If he slides to like late day 3, he'll end up being the first pick in the CFL draft, because he is a superstar guy that would kill it playing tackle up there. I love the depth at guard this year. There are so many good players. The Cooper kid from Miami, we've talked about him all year, doesn't get a lot of credit. This kid's a good lineman. The Dewberry kid at Alabama didn't always get the playing time, but this kid he's a high character kid. I think he's a good football player. And I'll throw a sleeper, small school kid that I like as a guard center. Sort of, he'll figure out or the team he goes to will figure out where he goes, is the Lemieux kid from Dartmouth. I really like him. I think in the end, you may end up being forced to play him at center, just because center is such a position that requires sort of genius-like ability nowadays. And coming out of Dartmouth, he can handle that. So center, I don't think people understand in terms of center. It's changed from 20 years ago. In the old days, the center could be smart, but he didn't have to be a genius. Nowadays, with the front changes, having to adjust protection calls in sync with the quarterback, the center's got to be even more evolved and smarter and more knowledgeable of what's going on. You can't have a guy that's okay mentally. You have to have a guy that's a stud. This Lemieux kid out of Dartmouth, he checks a lot of the boxes to me to be a day 3 pick who surprises people and comes in and starts as a rookie. I really like this kid.
Yeah, and he was one of the participants at Boston College Pro Day. It was nice to let him in the building. As you know, the Ivy League doesn't really conduct pro day. So, and that was a big opportunity for him because he didn't get an invite to the combine. He looked good at center down at the Senior Bowl. And to your point, obviously very cerebral. So, Logan Taylor, Jude Bowery, all at Boston College Pro Day, where Mike Vrabel, once again, was hands-on. I think New England is eyeing an offensive lineman with their 31 overall pick. Just a couple other guards as we get into the rest of the rankings. Amarj Reed Adams, a big guard from Texas A&M. Fabici Nawai from Oklahoma. Jaden Roberts, an athletic guard from Alabama. Joshua Braun, another one of these monsters from Kentucky. Logan Taylor, who you mentioned. Fernando Carmona from Arkansas. Caden Barnett is one of my favorite under-the-radar combine snubs out of Wyoming. Very impressive week at the East-West Shrine Bowl. You got the Notre Dame guard, Billy Schroth. Campbell, who you mentioned. Micah Mars from Georgia, I think, is a day 3 value. And then Inez Cooper, you mentioned. Dylan Wade, multiple-year starter at Auburn. Evan Bernstein from Northwestern, I think, came over from South Dakota and transferred up this past year. So very good, as Adam Exploits in the chat room said. Very, very good amount of day 2 guards here on the big board. All right. Any final thoughts there, Russ?
No, I think it's interesting to me. I think the tackle position has unbelievable depth. I mean, I honestly think there's 8 to 10 guys that could go in the first 2 rounds. When I look at the guards, I see it as great depth. I don't know if you're going to see as many go early. To me, the guard depth is that 3rd to 5th round, not the 1st to 2nd. I think Ione, I think Pregnon, those 2 guys probably, in my opinion, they're probably 2nd round guys. But then I think when you get the Rutledges, the Bisonis, the Roberts, I think those guys all the way down to the Harkeys, the Taylors, I think from round 3 to round 5, you're going to see a lot of good guards get taken. So very good depth, just different depth, not as top heavy, more middle heavy to me for the guards.
Yeah, I think early day 3, you're going to find a nice little sweet spot for some of these guys here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Russ, Lande, Rick Serritella, breaking it down, chopping it up. We're about halfway through the hour of power here on the All Access Football Draft Watch Show. It is March 28th, 2026. We are 27 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft destination, Pittsburgh, and we are excited to be counting you down. Next week, we'll get in some defensive line, Russ, but today is offensive line day, and we have one more position to preview, which is the center spot. And to me, you know, I've seen a lot of people have Connor Lew out of Auburn ranked as their top guard. Our scouting staff is not as high on him. He's actually number 5 on our board. I'll work reverse order. Brian Parker from Duke, another one of these tackles in college who converted to center. He played the entire week at the center spot at the East-West Shrine Bowl and did very well there. Jake Slaughter out of Florida, Parker Brailsford out of Alabama, and then Sam Hecht from Kansas State, man, is our number 1 ranked center. This guy was a stonewall down in Mobile. You go watch the film. Just great size, hand placement, polished, lateral movement. I really like this Sam Hecht out of Kansas State, who does not get talked about enough.
No, I agree with you. I think to me, and I may be the outlier here, I like Hecht and I like Logan Jones. I know he's little. Yeah. I know people have concerns that he's under 6'3". He's really played under 300 pounds. So the question is, can he physically hold up? But to me, Hecht and Jones, a little bit different, but these are both kids that have good feet. They play very tough and aggressive. Even though Jones is not big, he's really he plays competitively. I like both of those guys as starting centers at the next level. I think Hecht, I think he has shown that despite not getting much publicity, scouts knew him. He gets down there, he shows, hey, the scouts know what they're doing. There's a reason scouts have been sort of buzzing about him since before this season, saying this could be one of the sleeper players in the draft. Really good football player, not a huge kid. 310 pounds is where he played. I think this kid's going to be I don't think he's going to be an early pick. I think day 2 sometime he's going to go. But I think him and Jones, to me, are the 2 guys that stand out. The Coogan kid from Indiana.
Well, let me talk about Logan Jones because I'm a big fan, and I had to dink him a little bit just due to the medical, right? And I'm not sure what that looked like in Indy, so we're blind to that. But
yes, no doubt.
If you take that out of the equation, he might be my number one center. But you
him
do
and
have
Hecht,
to factor that in.
Yeah. Oh, you do. And him and Hecht, it's if you have any medical concerns, you take Hecht. If you don't, you take him. To me, they're two very similar players. One's a little bigger, but it's not like all of a sudden Hecht's like not 330. Hecht's a little over 300.
Jones has got. I mean, nobody in the draft might be stronger than Logan. I mean, this guy benches over 700. He squats over 700. He benches over 500. I mean, he's just a animal in the weight room. And then you go out on the field, he can get down the line, he can pull, he can climb in the second level. He's very smart, multiple year starter. It's just, what you mentioned, 299 pounds. Can he hold up?
Yeah, I mean, all I keep thinking is the Max Crosby deal fell apart. Baltimore signs the kid from the Bengals. So Baltimore can replace Lindebaum right here, guy from the same school. It makes too much sense to me that Baltimore doesn't take Logan Jones. But I think there's some other good players. Like you mentioned the guys you went through, but how about Pat Coogan at Indiana?
He's right there, yep. Let me go through them. Jaeger Burton, Kentucky, Logan Jones, Iowa, Pat Coogan, Indiana. How about Matt Golban, Michigan State, Delby Lemieux, who you mentioned, Dartmouth, James Brockemeyer, Miami.
He's one I'm intrigued by. I think Brockemeyer's got a little bit more to him than people are giving him credit for. He's not a big kid, so I think people are concerned. But when you watch him play, he seems to have good position, can bend his knees, he can stay under control. I like that kid. The one thing that as we're doing this whole O-line thing, Rick, that really sort of makes me just as a whole, every single position, we've got one or two Penn State guys, right? So their O-line was good. What happened to Drew Allar? Like that's the thing that if you're like, when you look at quarterbacks a lot of time and you see a guy that falls off, sometimes it's, they stayed their senior year, 3 of their linemen left, their O-line was awful, so it went down. Well, no, this kid literally had good linemen in front of him.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really, I know I'm sidetracking off the O-line, but it's one of the things that concerns me about Allar is in 2024, I thought this kid looked like the number one pick for the 2026 NFL draft.
He sure did.
And he had a good offensive line this year. It wasn't like they were terrible. And he struggled with consistency almost every single game. I don't understand it. It's very odd to me. Penn State's got
let me just say this, because Adam Brenneman this past week during the Penn State Pro Day did a behind the scenes tour of the Penn State facilities, specifically the quarterback room and the virtual reality and the spa treatment and all this stuff they have. And so the Penn State quarterback coach retweeted it with the quote saying, "Everything you need to develop as a franchise quarterback in Happy Valley." And it took so much restraint for me, Russ, not to leave a comment and say, well, then what the hell happened to Drew?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, because everything I've heard is great kid, hard worker, does all the stuff to be prepared. I would love to know if there was something else. He ended the season with the season-ending injury. Was there some other injury we didn't know about that he was battling through all year? Because he's one of the few quarterbacks I've ever done where I was very confident before the 2025 season started that he would be a first-round pick. Like, to me, there was no question. And then he literally fell off a cliff this year.
Yeah.
And it's one of the mysteries. I know it's a little tangent here, but Penn State's got a lot of O-linemen that are getting drafted. It's not like he was behind a bunch of reject linemen, and that's what concerns me. But anyway,
it all factors into the evaluation, right?
It does. And just as a side note, the depth at center is, I don't know if I've
insane.
Seen it. It's crazy. Yeah. I've never seen where you have Logan Jones, you have Sam Heck. We didn't really talk about Connor Lew, that some people love, some people don't. But even
Pat Coogan to me is
Pat
like
Coogan right there. You're talking 3 or 4 legit starting centers, and that's not including the Zahn kid from A&M, who's got to be in the discussion as a potential starter. The Lemieux kid, who did really well down at the Senior Bowl playing center. I mean, there's other centers. This is normally there's a guy who goes in that second or third round, and then there's a bunch of guys go in the 7th round because teams need guys for camp. This year, I'll bet you're going to see 5 centers gone by the end of the 4th round.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm just curious to see because the center position is really devalued, and Doug Dorner says, "Hey, heard that, Russ, with their pick number 14. Will the Ravens take a center?" I don't think any
Maybe not at
center.
14, but maybe they trade down
Yeah,
because
I don't think any center is going to sneak into the first
no,
round this year.
no. But you know what? I could see them in round 2 going to get Logan Jones. He just makes too much sense to me. He checks all the boxes for what they lost in Lindenbaum or what they could get in a replacement center.
Yeah, no, he's kind of become a forgotten man in
Yeah.
this year's draft. We had a first round grade on him just going into the previous year, so the talent's there. Obviously, medical questions. We'll see where he lands. All right, Russ. We got through the offensive linemen.
Yeah.
We're gonna do defensive linemen next week. Any final thoughts or parting shots for the people? I'll let you boogie because I have some pro day notes I won't bog you down for that I'll do
Well,
afterward. But
all
did
I'll
you get a
say is
chance to tune into the UFL last night at all?
I did not. I'd love to hear
Okay.
your thoughts before I jump. What do you think?
So, some things remain the same, some things change. Let's start with the good. The good was it was sold out, right?
Wow.
They had a bunch of halftime performance acts at every opening day scheduled. So I'm assuming the concert was what led to the sellout crowd, but to their credit, at the end of the game, fourth quarter, it wasn't deserted like we've become used to
Yeah.
seeing on TV. It was still probably more than halfway filled to capacity. So the fans stuck around, hung in there. Now, um, I think the talent is better. Like you saw guys like John Ross and Jaden Sheridan out there making plays. There's a lot of new quarterbacks in the mix. Jason Bean was starting for Louisville, and the whole time he's playing, I'm saying to myself, I hope the agent realizes he's making a bad career decision right now. He should be up in Canada where he can make close to $1 million a year after a year or two of playing in the league because you're capped out at 70,000 in the UFL. And Bean, it's just a skinny frame, made some great throws, struggled with a lot of wide receiver drops, but then the final game or the last drive, like Birmingham came down, they kicked the field goal or scored a touchdown to go up by 2. So Louisville had a chance to come down and win it. And Bean just panicked. He threw up a jump ball downfield where he didn't have to. There was plenty of time on the clock. Just bad mistake, poor decision. I don't see Bean as an NFL quarterback. I think he would do well up in Canada. But John Ross, like he flashed some big time plays and then he made some big time mistakes. He had a penalty that negated a beautiful screen pass that he took for 20 yards in the blink of an eye. But my biggest beef with the UFL, Russ, and I've been saying this for several years, and I wish somebody in the Mike Rapoli or somebody would pay attention to this. When you only have a 3-week training camp and you're not doing even contact or padded practices, it's like a Club Med atmosphere, okay? And when you have roster turnover, and in some instances, such as the 3 organizations that relocated entirely new rosters, you're basically taking a new batch of players, mushing them all together, and telling them to go and perform at a high level in 3 weeks. It just doesn't work that way. And that's what shows up on the field. Quality, lack of quality play, sloppy performance. And that's the last thing you want to put in front of the fans, especially on opening week, because then they don't come back. So the teams couldn't move the ball. There was no real rhythm. I think it was a 15-13 final score, something to that effect. So, for all the good in terms of capturing the attention of the casual fan, I'm not sure they're there yet. I am interested to see, how these halftime acts kind of have jump started the attendance here for week 1, if they can sustain that, or is the attendance just a product of the concerts and then it tails off? I think that'll be something that I'm curious to see for week 2. But those are my initial thoughts and impressions from the opening game last night.
Okay. As my closing part, because I know you got your stuff with the pro days, I will point to your point is exactly what happened with the original XFL. They had a 2 to 3 week training camp for a whole new league. And if they had just either had a 6-week camp or maybe a 3-week, a month off, a 3-week, and then season starts, the teams would have been better. They were all new. And if you remember, the first 2 weeks of the original XFL, the ratings were off.
Ooh, that was awesome. Yeah.
They were better than any league since.
I can still picture Vince McMahon coming out. This is the XFL.
And the football was awful because they hadn't had the long training camp. By the end of the season, the football was really, really good. But by then, people had stopped watching. So it's one of those things where I think, hey, I get it. You don't want to spend the money. And maybe year 2 and year 3, you cut down to 3 weeks for training camp. But year 1, I would almost have a month of walkthrough and a month of padded leading to camp, leading to the opening season. Go 2 months and have it be walkthrough. Maybe do 1 week walkthrough, 1 week padded, 1 week walkthrough, 1 week, just so everybody's on the same page. Players know who they're working with. They get a better feel. Then week 1, like if that thing had been great football yesterday, I'll bet you that 90% of the people stay for the whole game.
Yeah.
So that to me is the one, and I get it. It's very expensive to have training camp in an upstart league.
Yeah, but you know what? If you want to be taken seriously, you got to, like, if you want to be a real league, you've got to take the necessary steps to ensure quality play because, Russ, I mean, almost every team had a quarterback competition, and they didn't even announce the starters until a day or two before the first game.
And 3 weeks is hard to really judge that. They're just learning their play, but give them 6 weeks or 8 weeks, you have a much better chance. And trust me, like I said, I know the money's an issue.
And how about Nolan Henderson beating out Louis Perez for the starting job?
No, it wasn't Henderson. It was Austin Reed.
Oh, Austin Reed. I'm sorry. Yeah. The Western Kentucky kid. Yeah.
And I think Austin's a really good quarterback. Like, I think he has a ton of potential. But that tells you that the short camp, and I'm not saying Austin didn't deserve it, but short camp may not give anybody a real chance to prove what they are yet. So anyway, you've got your pro day stuff to go. My big thing I'll just finish with, it's a great O-line class. If your team is hurting on the O-line, your team, if they draft well, has a chance to fix a lot of their problems, getting 2 or 3 guys this year, unlike most years where you get one chance. So it's a great class of offensive linemen.
Yeah, one last comment and question before you go. Adams exploits. You know where I'm from. I'm surprised Philly doesn't have an XFL team now. I've heard that they may have a women's flag football team. Well, they did have the Stars, and I don't think the attendance was great. But Philadelphia is tough for an alternate football market, I think. It's just such a pro town.
Yep.
And, yeah, I mean, people's attention are just split up amongst the Sixers,
They're such a pro sport.
The Phillies, it's
phenomenal fans that it's hard to get them to pay attention.
Not even Temple can get people to dedicate.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think Northeast as a whole is really suited for.
No, I agree with you.
Alternate football. All right, Russ. Well, we appreciate the time. We'll let you boogie here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll come back. We'll break down the defensive linemen next week, just like we did today. That
sounds awesome, man. Enjoy the pro day stuff, and we'll chat next week. I can't wait to get my official, the only Bible that matters.
Yes.
The end of this
coming.
Week, baby.
Hopefully for the Easter delivery. So maybe.
Well, that's what it has to be.
Yeah.
You need your Bible for Easter. So there you go. All right.
Russ.
Thanks, Rick.
We'll see you next week. There he is, and there he goes. Russ Lande here with me, Rick Serritella, each and every Saturday. This is March 28th, 2026. We'll come back and do defensive line next week. Just slid in some UFL talk there. And there are several games on the docket. I think 2 more today and 1 tomorrow. So we'll be tuned in and glued in, I think, starting at noon Eastern time. So about an hour away. We're nearly an hour of power through the show. And I have some medical updates and some pro day news to report. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 30 seconds. Buckle up. All right, we're back at it again. RIC in the place to be. Rick Serritella here, broadcasting live from the confines of the Jersey Shore. And, you know, it's kind of that Indian summer right now where they're teasing us with one nice day and then a couple of crappy days, and we're up, we're down. I'm sure the rain, April showers are in our near future, but hope is on the horizon. Spring is trying to spring free, despite what the groundhog told us. And spring ball is heating up too. So we've got our 2027 big board rankings coming out shortly over at the allaccessfootball.com. Of course, the NFL Draft Bible is our 24th year of publication. I'm trying to deliver the PDF to you guys for the Easter holiday. That'll be my Easter present to you all. Over 500 in-depth scouting reports, a labor of love. We were sitting at 547 as of last night. Still sliding in a couple more with Draft Bible Familia, Will Donahue, Dom Ambrose, Lauren Davidoff, Jarrett Regal. These guys were on location across the nation at several pro days throughout the week. And I do have some pro day news and notes. But first, some medical updates. All right. Courtesy of our good friend Eric Edholm, who I hope to have on during our NFL Draft live stream coverage. Will be live all 3 days, coinciding with the ESPN and NFL network. And I understand the mainstream media coverage is going to be the go-to for many individuals. But if you like X's and O's analysis, in-depth analysis, if you like day 3 player breakdowns, then our live stream coverage will be where it's at. So we're looking forward to that. We hope you join us. And of course, like, share, and subscribe wherever you are watching for our latest show updates. We will have, I think, 3 or 4 more positional preview shows leading up to the draft with Russ Lande. Hoping to have Russ on throughout the show as well. And a lot of special guests. We'll see who shows up, and we'll announce that more as we get closer. 27 days away. Woo! All right. News and notes from Eric Edholm over at NFL.com. Eric Rivers, the Georgia Tech wide receiver, just had hernia surgery 2 weeks ago. His timetable to recover from that is about 3 to 5 weeks. So he will likely miss the rookie minicamp, but should be healed in plenty of time for the start of regular training camp come August. Xavier Harris, you know, the hits just keep coming for this guy. And I love him as a player, but he already had a huge rap sheet on off the field concerns. And now he just had foot surgery post combine, still in a cast and walking boot. And I got to say, like, Xavier Harris is going to be one of the most fascinating case studies in this draft, because I do think he's a borderline round 1 talent. But then you factor in the off the field and now the medical, and you just wonder, you know, where does he land? He was arrested on multiple charges, including a DUI, reckless driving, being in minor possession, not using his headlights, running a stop sign. That was his first arrest in 2023. He was then arrested in 2024 with domestic violence, obstructing arrest. So there's a long list of off-field concerns for Xavier Harris, who measured in. I mean, you can't teach the size, 6'8", 330 pounds, 35-inch arms. You just wonder if the headache is worth the risk of taking on when it comes to Xavier Harris of Ole Miss. All right, Dante Corleone. I mean, I hate to say it. I don't know if there was a more disappointing player I saw on the All-Star circuit. I think he's a 6th or 7th year senior, and he just kind of fell off a cliff. And I know he's had some health issues, and you could see it down in Frisco. I mean, there was no giddy up, no burst, just kind of stuck in the mud. And he now is going to have tightrope surgery on his ankle next week. So Dante Corleone, I think, who was a borderline day 3 talent, may now run the risk of going undrafted entirely. So those are some medical updates courtesy of Eric Edholm over at NFL.com. All right. On to the pro days. And Our special guest contributor, Anthony Russo, a fellow Substack publisher, did a phenomenal write up on some pro day risers this past week over at allaccessfootball.com. You can head over to the website and check that out. I'm going to get into some more pro day highlights from this past week as well. I also published a pro day report on the Patriots as they barnstormed Boston College. You can go over to bostonsportsjournal.com to read up on that one. And then our scout Will Donahue was on location at Holy Cross, Central Connecticut, and UConn. I just filed my latest pro day report over to Greg Bedard at Boston Sports Journal that highlights the 3 regional New England workouts. And then I have more on Mike Vrabel's participation at Arizona State in regards to Ironhacker. But, Boston College, I think Lewis Bond was the player that scouts really wanted to see because he did not receive a combine invite. And we mentioned Jude Bowery and Logan Thomas, who did receive an invite to the combine, as did the defensive end Hutchins. But Lewis Bond, didn't run great, 4.50. And to Russ's point, what was once considered pretty adequate speed is now considered slow. But, he is what you see is a precision route runner, yards after catch, dependable hands. So Lewis Bond, I mean, he set the single season touchdown record, I believe, this past year. And Bill O'Brien, he has compared him to John Mechie III in the past and said he's one of the greatest players to come through the hallways of Chestnut Hill. All right, over at Central Connecticut State, quarterback Brady Olson had himself a day, and he was throwing alongside Joe Fagnano at UConn. Fagnano, a projected day 3 prospect, but Brady Olson was neck and neck in terms of the throwing drills there. Aired it out, showed a strong arm. Now, he is more of a pocket passer, very little mobility in the pocket, 4.80 on both of his 40-yard dash attempts. So a little bit different style of players, whereas Fagnano, he actually did several throws where he rolled out, throwed it on the move, maintained the accuracy, and I think he had something like a 27-1 touchdown to interception ratio this past year. So Fagnano, Skylar Bell, another wide receiver here from the Northeast that probably doesn't get the love he deserves. And again, just a incredible route runner, historic season there for the Huskies. He's had over 2,000 combined receiving yards over the last 2 seasons, a frequent visitor of the end zone, and he tested 4.4 at the combine, and then he went out and just laid down, I think, a 4.11 short shuttle and sub 7 3-cone drill. So the change of direction, burst, is all there for Skylar Bell, who I think is a day 2 selection when it's all said and done. Also, Lewis Hanson, who was recruited by Jim Harbaugh over to Michigan, more of an inline tight end with the Wolverines, but he busted out in a big way for the Huskies this past year, had about 500 yards receiving. Shout out to his agent, John Pace, who was also in attendance at the pro day. Byron Parham, I mean, my man had like 136 tackles, 15.5 for loss, 10.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, just undersized. He came in under 6 feet tall, did not run great, I think 4.78. But Byron Parham, one of those undrafted free agents to keep an eye on. And then I mentioned Ironhacker out of Arizona State. I mean, I really think this is the pick for the Patriots. If he's still on the board, they'll have to hold their breath. Ironhacker has really grown on me since I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. Vrabel really got hands-on, putting him through some hand placement drills. I think he was kind of testing his strength. And Cam Scadaboo and Joe Shane also in attendance at the Arizona State workout, where Jordan Tyson, we talked about it on last week's show, did not work out again. He was nowhere to be found at the combine and did miss games at the end of the season. So it's been about 3.5 months since he's actually been able to perform any physical activity. We'll see how much that impacts his draft stock. He is one of the increasingly growing number of prospects who refused to run a 40-yard dash. Now he's got the health issue as a legitimate excuse, I suppose, but there's still a month 3 weeks to go before the draft. You're telling me, Jordan Tyson, you can't do a private workout and give us a 40-yard dash before the NFL draft? But a lot of players have gone that route as we plug in the data to the big board, more so than ever in the history of my 24 years of covering the draft. And at one point, it was a red flag if you didn't run a 40. It was hard to pound the table for those guys, but um, the times they are changing, right? All right, so I see Doug Dorner in the chat room. Maybe he can update us on some official numbers. But Cameron Dorner from North Texas, uh, physical, athletic wide receiver who I had at 6'1", 195 pounds from his spring measurements. I saw him record a 37.5-inch vertical, and someone posted unofficial 40 times and had him at 460. So, Doug, if you have any updated numbers, please let us know as we continue to track down pro day numbers to plug into the draft Bible. And sticking on the pro day theme, we'll go over to Alabama, where Ty Simpson threw and declared himself a first round pick. And that's just been a fascinating storyline. And I listened to some of the quote unquote NFL draft analysts discuss his draft stock, 36.5 confirmed for Cam Dorner. Did Tyson run in this pro day? I'll have to check that out. I did not see that. Ty Simpson, though, this is going to be fun because I see a lot of draft analysts argue that, well, he's not worth the second overall pick, but maybe later on in the draft, the Jets can take him. Well, if he's good enough to be a first round quarterback, why would you run the risk of losing him later on in the draft? If he's good enough for a first rounder, then you're labeling him a franchise quarterback. I think where my beef is with some of these draft analysts is they say, oh, well, he's not worth the top end of the first round, but maybe at the back end of the first round. No, like if you're a first round quarterback, that means you fall under the franchise quarterback category. And in a quarterback class, that's really a two-horse race. You know, I would not be shocked if the Jets pulled the trigger if Ty Simpson is the franchise quarterback that some believe him to be. I don't feel that way. I feel more as if he's getting pushed into this conversation because of as a byproduct of a poor quarterback class, very similar to Kenny Pickett several years ago. And I don't know where Ty Simpson is going to land, to be honest. But I would not be shocked if he does become the number 2 overall pick. Anyway, he is now up to 211 pounds. I was unaware that he had battled gastritis during the season and had dropped below 200 pounds during the season. So he's now back healthy and getting his weight up. Also, we mentioned Caden Proctor looked very, very athletic for a 360-pound offensive lineman going through the positional drills. Baron Morton from Texas Tech also had his pro day, and he said he has met with all 32 teams throughout this process and recently had dinner with the Dallas Cowboys. And Texas Tech, man, I think is going to have some big-time talent in this year's draft. Talk about Lee Hunter and David Bailey. They're both first-round picks in my book. Romello Height, I think, is another potential day 2 selection. So Texas Tech reaping the fruits of their NIL spending. How about Nate Adams? Nate Adams from South Dakota State, courtesy of our good friend Bo Marchant, coming in at 6'6" and 2/8", 325 pounds, 34-inch arms, posted 20 bench press reps, 27.5-inch vert, and 8'8" broad jump. Janalen Dupree. This one comes courtesy of former CFL GM John Murphy, great friend of the show. Jackson State wide receiver Janellen Dupree blazed a 4.33 40-yard dash. He averaged 16.5 yards per catch this past season. Kyle Louis, one of my favorite players in the draft, worked out at Pittsburgh at both safety and linebacker. I thought that was notable as there are some teams who do view him as a safety. He came in at 6 feet tall, though. I like him right there at linebacker. Probably going to go on day 2. He's going to have a day 1 grade in the draft Bible. Also, Ohio State, Caden McDonald, Ethan Oniwana, an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman, I guess, were the two standouts at Ohio State, from what I've been told. Onuyana is a fascinating guy. Never was really able to kind of win over a starting job, but has flashed a lot of potential. We saw him around the All-Star trails. And then Chase Bisnatis from Texas A&M, we mentioned 32-inch arms. He has met with a dozen teams, including the Panthers, Chargers, and Falcons. So if you want to read up on more pro day risers, head over to the website over at allaccessfootball.com. Like I alluded to, Anthony Russo, my paisan, he did a great pro day write-up for us just a couple days ago. You can find that over on the website, along with the NFL Draft Bible, which I'm hoping to deliver by Easter, as at least a PDF. It'll take another week or two to get those hard copies out, but we're 27 days away, and we are making our push to finish up the book. We're going to be in around 600 total scouting reports there, and it's a labor of love. It's something that we've compiled throughout the year, throughout multiple years, really, through our training camp visits, in-season games, all-star circuit. We were at every single all-star event this past January, the only media outlet to do that. Of course, we were well represented at the NFL Combine. We've got scouts all over the place at the pro days. So we've gathered all that information, put it in one location for you to easily consume and digest and get background reports and verified measurements. We'll have combine numbers. We'll have pro day numbers. We'll have all-star game numbers. That's something that we've done new for the first time for the Draft Bible. We're listing the measurements from the all-star games, from the combine, and the pro days right there for every single player, so you can make a determination on which measurements you want to go by. Obviously, the combine was screwed up this year with arm length measurements, so we're giving them to you all, and that way you can maybe average out the balance, or however your preferred method to your madness may be. That was definitely noticeable to me, just how wonky the arm length measurements were during this draft season. So we appreciate the love and support. It goes a long ways towards us being able to do live streams, and I'd like to be able to do more of these shows and bring more of the Anthony Russos on the board. So yeah, if you want to support the cause, get behind the Draft Bible, our 24th year of providing independent analysis, and can't thank you guys enough. It's been rough. It's been rough nights putting this bad boy together, but I love every second of it. Again, just a quick reminder, we'll be streaming live all 3 days for the 2026 NFL Draft. We're really looking forward to bringing this to you. I personally get frustrated by the draft coverage on the mainstream media outlet just because I'm tired. Like by day 3, I want to hear about day 3 players being selected. I'm tired of just hearing about the same selections, the day 1 picks. They talk about them on day 2. They talk about them on day 3. Meanwhile, 20 selections go by off the board and we don't hear a peep about them. I'm done. I'm done doing it. I'm going to do it myself and provide the analysis that you guys, the people, want to hear. I know you guys deserve that. And so we're going to bring it to you. All right. Also, Owen Heineke, his draft fate has not yet been determined. I put out an article yesterday over on the website just talking about he has an April 13th or April 16th hearing to find out whether or not he will be allowed to participate with Oklahoma. But talk about a weird path if he does get the extra year of eligibility, because he was at the Senior Bowl, went to the Combine, participated in this pro day, and now could be going back to campus for spring ball. Did he win his hearing? So Owen Heineke, somebody, I guess we'll have to include him in the book since his hearing is going to be after our deadline, but we don't know for certain whether or not Owen Heineke will or will not be in the draft. Also, I've done a couple of Scout Honor podcasts with our good friend Dave Del Cole, in memory of Dave T. Thomas, who has paved the way for individuals like myself. And if you want deep dive, if you enjoy these shows and you want to go even deeper down the big board, I did that with Dave Del Cole on a couple shows with the Scout Honors podcast, and he does a great job spitting out new episodes with all kind of draft neck guests, and I suggest you go check that out. as well as InsideTheLeague.com. Our good friend Neil Stratton does a free newsletter on the scouting and agent community that comes out for free every Friday. And I also do contribute to that. And I talk about the business of football. I talk about the scouting and agent community and some of the things that are non-draft. Of course, for everything draft, go to allaccessfootball.com. And of course, we also have All Access Football Consulting that I don't talk about enough. And my good friend Mook Williams and we've been doing the consulting for about the past 5 years. He's a former certified NFL PA agent and co-founder of Vayner Sports. He's retired from the agent industry, still represents some coaches, but we've been assisting a lot of players, coaches, organizations, leagues, teams. So if you need help with anything football, hit me up, RIC at allaccessfootball.com. Mook and myself are available for you. All right. Sports Management Worldwide. You see me rocking the gear. They got a new football GM and scouting course starting up soon. Of course, my co-host Russ Lande spearheads that online course. It's an 8-week course, teaches you the fundamentals of scouting. And I think a new curriculum is starting next month. So head over to smww.com, check out the courses over there. And I think that concludes our broadcast. And we've got all the notes in from our offensive line big board. We even snuck in some UFL talk. We got some injury updates in, the latest from the pro day trails, and everything that's going on between now and the next 27 days as we count you down to Destination Pittsburgh. I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Went a little overtime today, the hour in power, plus 12 minutes. And big shout out to our chat room people. As always, Adams Exploits, Douglas Dorner holding us down in the chat room. We always love having you guys. Adam and Doug, thank you for shouting out Russ. And we'll be back at it again next Saturday, like we are each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Of course, you can always watch the replay or archive over at our YouTube channel. Today, we did stream on Twitter and Facebook. I think we're going to continue to do that during the draft season here, just to try to get out to as many eyeballs as we possibly can. And of course, if the draft sale is not still on the website, you can use our promo code RICVIP and save 30% that way as well. So buckle up, hunker down. Next week will be just 20 days away from the 2026 NFL draft. And hopefully I have an update on the draft Bible delivery by then. But for Russ Lande, Rick Serritella, all my chat room people, the Draft Bible Familia, and everybody who loves the NFL draft. We'll see you next Saturday, everybody. Buckle up.